Hi everyone, Christy with Kristen Ritter Photography here. Today we are going to go over how to perform a head swap. So in wedding photography, sometimes we're shooting so quickly, or even when you're shooting family sessions, you'll have a really great photo and you just got to switch a couple heads around. We commonly see this in like our formal shots. So in this case with the groomsmen, for whatever reason, we had one groomsman that didn't have his eyes open in any of the photos, and we were kind of trying to hurry up to get to the bride and groom photos. So I already chose my photos, and I have them loaded into Photoshop. So behind here is the photo that I want to fix this face. So right now he looks like he's kind of snoozing, and that's okay because we're going to fix it. Everyone else looks great. This was kind of a quick day and we didn't have many options because we did not have the option to leave the venue and there wasn't much time to do that anyway. So I added in the photo that I want to replace the head with, which happens to be just a photo of the best man alone. And I added in by using Control J, a layer mask, or you can actually click on this button down here. But I don't actually want to add another one. So now that we have that, and it should be in the color white, which means we see everything from this layer, you're going to use your brush, and I'm going to go to this little arrow here, and what it does is it switches between brushing on and brushing off. So anytime you use the white, it's going to brush on, and when you use the black, it takes it away. So I start by going around the head that I want to put into my photo, and I'll grab a little bit of his neck as well. And for those of you who may not know, the bracket keys on kind of the upper right hand side of your keyboard actually make your brush size bigger and smaller. I'm going to bring his neck over just in case I need that too. So now that I have it selected, you can hit the backslash key and it'll show you what you've masked to make sure you haven't missed anything. And then I'm going to actually hit Command I or Control I to invert. So now I only have his head, which is extremely large. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm going to add in some guides just so I know kind of how big his face should be as I'm resizing it. So you can kind of like eyeball it, and then when I get closer, try and line it up. That might actually be pretty good. So then we can scroll back in, and I can see that's pretty close. Hit the Enter key so I can turn it on and off. It's looking a little big yet. Not by too much though. And as I'm resizing, I'm holding down the Shift key to keep the proportion so that he doesn't get like a skinny face or a really fat face. So I hold the Shift and then I drag, hit Enter so I can turn it on and off. And that's pretty good actually. So then depending upon, sometimes it like clicks into place and it's a perfect match. And this one probably won't be because I didn't have any from the same series that would work for a headshot. So I'm going to turn down my opacity so that I can see kind of where the new head is compared to the old one. And then you can actually use your arrow keys to tap it over. See where we need to go. So there'll probably be a little touching up that I need to do, but this looks pretty good. So I'm going to bring my opacity back to 100, and then we can actually start cleaning up around his head. So I'm going to get rid of my guides by clicking and just dragging them off the screen. And then I'm going to go back to my brush, click on my layer mask, And then I'm going to adjust the hardness of my brush to about 50%. And I'm going to use the black brush, and I'm going to make my brush size a little smaller, zoom in really close, and now we are going to touch this up. Oops. That was a little much. My computer is being a little slow because I'm screen recording. It doesn't like me. So here is kind of funky because it's his beard. So we definitely don't want this a very straight line. I don't yet know how much of his neck I'm going to use. So I'm going to get the top of his head touched up first, and then I'm going to go back through and figure out what I need to use from his neck from this new photo. And thankfully here, because it wasn't taken from the same series, so had I had a shot of the groomsman in that same exact spot and I just needed to replace one head, I probably wouldn't have had to touch up this closely. But because it was from a few moments later in a different location, I have to get pretty close. Usually it's not quite this complicated, at least for me. If you're doing a family session head swap and it's like a little with their head turned a completely different direction, it probably is going to be a little more intricate like this. You might have to, do some clone work with the shoulders and the background of the original image you might have to bring in. And the nice thing about using a layer mask is if you do mess up and take too much off, you can always go back and brush it back on. So this is a little hack that I do. I only brush really close around the face because then I can come in with my polygonal lasso tool and then basically go around very quickly his entire head and get rid of all that extra photo from the new image that we do not need from the background. And then I pick up my brush, so I can either click on it or hit B. And now I can pretty quickly brush on here without really caring where I'm brushing. Alright, so now the top part of the head looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom back in and see what we need to do around the neck area. So I might be able to use just his chin. I might not even need any of the neck. So I'm going to actually take a snapshot of where I'm at. And what it does is it saves this exact moment in this editing process. So I have this layer, and then you can actually find it up here. So the snapshot, we have the original, and then the snapshot. Or Snapchat, yeah, it's the snapshot. So I'm going to zoom back in. And now that we have that saved, in case I don't like what I do in this next part, I can actually go back to the snapshot and work from there instead of starting all over. So I'm just brushing this off. So that looks pretty good. So I'm okay with that. So the next kind of step is to turn your new head off and on over here. So turn out the visibility, turn it back on kind of quickly to see where things are not looking how they should. So everything on kind of the bottom part of his face and this side looks really good. There's a couple places that I'm seeing need some touching up, like his ear over here and the top of his head. So I'm going to turn him on and off again. All right, so touch that up. It's actually pretty easy. We're going to come down to our background layer and hit Command J to make another copy of it, just so that we're never editing on the original in case we need to go back to it. And I'm going to come over here and use my clone stamp tool and make it kind of smaller. And then you hold down the Option key to sample where you want to copy over. So I'm going to choose right here, and then it gives you kind of a little preview. And I actually just drew that white in right there over his ear. So check that, and it looks like I need a little more actually. So we're just going to copy this all down. Make sure he only has one ear. Might be kind of traumatic if he has more than one. All right, that looks good. So now I got to worry about this part up here. So also on my background layer, it looks like most of it is supposed to be this kind of, what is it called, grout in the brick. So I'm going to just follow that over. I selected right over here, and I'm going to just bring that exact same thing back here. All right, so I know I have the background drawn correctly, so the next step is to kind of touch up the hair in the layer mask of the new head. I'm going to zoom in as close as I can, and then when I need to get in this close around hair, usually what I do is I bring my opacity of my brush down to about 50%, sometimes lower, and then I'm actually going to brush some of this off. So we don't want to really get rid of his little hair flips here too much. But we will smooth them down a little because the rest of his head is pretty smoothed out. And that looks pretty good to me. All right. So normally if we had two pictures from the same set, we probably would be done here. However, since that is not the case, I actually have to keep going. So I created another Snapchat in case things don't go how I want it. I can go right back to that, and we can even do that here. So if I didn't like how I touched up the head before, I could have went back, but I'm going to keep it. So basically right now, this head, he was in a little bit more sun in the next picture. If you look how the rest of the groomsmen are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up, do a curves adjustment, and then hit Alt Command G so that it's only working on the layer underneath this one instead of all of them. So you can see if I bring my curves layer up, it whites out his face, and if I bring it down, it looks pretty nasty, but it makes it darker and then throws it all out. So I'm not going to have to do too much, just the hair. I actually think that looks pretty good. Maybe a little more. I don't like what that's doing, so maybe we'll try brightness contrast, and then I will do the same thing, Alt Command G to apply it to only that layer that I want to work on. There we go, and I'm going to decrease our contrast just a little as well. Sorry, I'm getting a frog in my throat. That looks pretty good. So I can create another Snapchat. Oh man, snapshot. So here is the final image after the head swap, and here's before. And I can actually, oops, group these all together so you can see the before and after. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, please let me know.